Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us live for today's Customer Success Workshop with Paul Phillip, the founder and CEO of Amity. My name is Mathilde. I'm the manager of marketing here at Amity, where we provide customer success managers with a platform that they can use to retain and grow their customers at scale. So we're super excited to be tackling such a great topic today. We're discussing customer onboarding, and more specifically, we'll be working with you to show you how to go about building and updating your onboarding playbook for your CS organization. A little bit more about our speaker today. We're really excited to have Paul Phillip, who is the founder and CEO of Amity, joining us. So he's a leading innovator in SaaS and customer success. And since founding Amity, he's spoken with customer success professionals from all industries and types of organizations. And he's acquired a huge wealth of knowledge about best practices, which he shares on a daily basis with our customers. And today he's sharing some of it with us. Thanks for joining us, Paul.
You're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
So before we do get started, as usual, a couple of housekeeping notes to share with everyone. We will be on Twitter. We'll be using the hashtag CSWorkshop, and we are on Twitter at GetAmity and at PPhilip. And we would love to engage with you. If you see a slide that you really like, take a screen grab and share it on social. We'd love to retweet you and engage with you on there. And as usual as well, we will be sending the recording as well as the slides tomorrow. So do check your inbox. You will get a note from me, and you will have a replay link on there. If you don't see a note from me, just check your spam folder or reply to one of my invitations or reminders, and I would be more than happy to send you the direct link as well. And finally, we do have a Q&A planned at the end of the webinar. So at any point during the presentation, open your Q&A panel from the Zoom control panel and send us your questions. We do have some questions prepared that we collected before, and we are super excited to answer all of your questions about your business and about your onboarding playbook as well. So on this note, I'm excited to introduce Paul. Paul, thanks for being with us, and they're all yours now.
Great, thanks, Mathilde. Thanks everyone for coming out today. We appreciate you taking the time. We know that you're all busy. So let's just jump in. So today we're going to be talking about onboarding and playbooks. So a playbook is really a key concept in customer success. It's really your recipe for how you go about managing your customer success process. The term playbook comes from multiple types of sports like football, where the team has a playbook, and for different situations and different opportunities, and they practice those playbooks, and then they put those playbooks into operation on the playing field. Anybody who saw this year's Super Bowl saw both teams implement some rare playbooks that they had all practiced. So basically a playbook is a set of rules to follow, just what to do, when, and how. Playbooks really help because they're standardized, they're repeatable, they're a way of capturing the knowledge that you gain as you work with your customers. And it also makes sure that you're following the same playbook that all the other CSMs are following, so that you're being consistent with your customers. Okay, so why do we need playbooks? So playbooks really help you organize your work, and they help you stay in control. I know when I'm doing something that's repetitive, that happens over and over again, and I don't have a place where it's written down what I should be doing, I always feel like I'm going to miss something, or I missed something, and that's what wakes me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. What did I miss? I have a board meeting next week. What didn't I put together? And so I have a board meeting prep playbook. So playbooks help you be more accurate with your customers. Make sure you don't make missteps. They help you sleep better at night, make your life a lot easier, and also to help you measure your performance so you know where you're winning and where you're not winning. And also the same thing at the team level. It helps you set goals for your team, monitor their KPIs. Since everyone's working off the same playbook, it really increases collaboration. You all have the same language. If you say I'm at the customization phase, you know what that means. It really helps bringing new employees up to speed. This makes a huge difference here at Amity. A new CSM comes on board, and they just have to study the key playbooks with their manager and ask a few questions. And so that really helps. Okay. And at the end of the day, playbooks help you deliver better results more repeatably with less resources. Okay. So why are we focusing on onboarding today? You can have a playbook for all of your processes. Upsell playbook, a QBR playbook, a renewal playbook, an adoption playbook. You can organize any of it. It's just that from a churn point of view, your onboarding playbook probably is the one that has the biggest impact on your churn rate. We don't have a quote here for the poor onboarding is the leading cause of churn, because we had about 100 quotes saying that. The TSIA quantified it, saying that 92% of trained customers renew and 80% of untrained customers renew. But the key thing to keep in mind is that you want to get your customers to the point where they're getting value as quickly as possible. Maybe not your whole value proposition, but but to the point where they're getting some value. Customers take a big risk when they make a decision to buy a service, and you want to reduce the anxiety and increase the confidence by getting to the point where they're getting value as quickly as possible. And so take a second, because we're going to use this in the rest of the workshop, to think about what's that point of first value that you'd like your customers to get. At Amity, we call it the pay attention view. It's the ability to see which customers need attention right now, so that you know that you don't have any unanswered emails, or that you don't have any forgotten tasks or missed tickets. And so that's really the first value point we like to implement for our customers. So think about what that is for you and your customers, and we'll build on that in the rest of the workshop today. So it's really important you want to give your customers a great experience when you're onboarding. It's what they're really going to remember. And if you don't give them a great experience during onboarding, the relationship's already starting off back on its heels. And so a good repeatable onboarding playbook will predictably let you deliver that great experience and start the relationship off in the right direction. Okay. And great quote here from one of our partners, Skill Jar. The entire experience of getting acquainted with the product and the company. It's a really key point. It's not just your product that delivers value, it's the entire company that delivers value. And it's not just a training session, but the end-to-end experience of from the time that they make the decision to the time that you're using product. That really, think of that as the first 3 days. You know, if that goes well, there might be a fourth date. If it doesn't go well, there probably won't be a fourth date. Okay. So let's talk about actually building your onboarding playbook. And we're going to be using, for workshop purposes, we're going to be using an abstract, generalized onboarding process. You know, that's kind of an average of what our customers do. Your job is to map this process onto your onboarding process, and make it real for yourself. Okay. So this is the basic structure of a playbook, and so here we have a playbook that's going to last 30 days, and you know, so you want to set a goal. So in this case, you know, the goal might be to demonstrate value within the first X days. That might be 7 days for some of you. It might be 90 days for some of you. But it's good to be clear that, hey, we want this customer getting value by day X. It gives you a goal to true yourself to. And then you want to define how you're going to measure that. So how do you know that they're getting value on day X? And so you want to come up with a measure. You know, and an example of a measure is the number of users checking the dashboard 3 days running. And we know that, you know, someone coming into Amity and checking a dashboard after a training session and doing it once, that doesn't tell us much. That tells us that we didn't bore them to death during the training. But if they come in 3 straight days and check their pay attention view or your dashboard, that really tells us that they're starting to get engaged and that they're starting to get some value. Okay? And we're going to be building the playbook in the Merlin fashion. If you know, Merlin said start in the future and work backwards. That's how he lives his life. And that really helps you keep your goal in mind and stops you, typically if you move from day 0 out to day 30, you get too many stages at the beginning and too many long stages at the end, and you get bogged down. It really helps to start from the goal and ask yourself, okay, so they're using the dashboard 3 days in a row. What happened just before that? And then what happened just before that? Okay, so so just before they meet your goal, in a lot of cases, you're monitoring their performance and their activities. That's how you know that they met their goal. And so the last stage in a playbook might be just to monitor the behavior, monitor their metrics, and make sure that they're staying on track. And so you might want to monitor the number of active users, the number of users performing a key action like viewing a dashboard, monitor the percent of users performing that key action 3 days running, and you know, and that, you know, that'll tell you whether they're, you know, whether they are where you want them to be. Okay, and then so before you start monitoring them, you'll have to train them, and so that's the next stage to focus on. And you'll notice here that we're giving each stage a timeline. That's really to help you keep track of, you know, at a smaller level than 30 days. Because if one of the mid stages or early stages takes too long, it's likely that the whole playbook is going to be late. And, you know, for example, at Amity, if the data integration stage, which is the first thing that we do, takes longer than we planned for, we reach out to the customer and we talk about that. And sometimes we'll arrange to extend a pilot or extend an implementation period. So by giving each stage a timeline, it lets you be proactive when something isn't going the way that you'd like it to go. And the other thing is, you notice that each stage, we're coming up with a list of tasks that have to happen at each stage. And, so you have to schedule a training call, and you have to share the one-to-many training materials, and you might want to do a follow-up customer satisfaction survey. Obviously, your mileage will vary here. Okay, and then before that stage, then you want to review their implementation with them. So before you train them, you want to make sure that you've implemented them the way that you wanted to implement them. Obviously, for people that don't have a lot of implementation or customization, you might not have this step, but you will have an equivalent type of step in your process. Okay, and then, before you review it with them, you want to customize it, make sure that it's doing, meeting their expectations or your contract with them. And before that step, you want to go through the setup with them. And, that may be, if you're in a low-touch business, that setup may be very, very quick. And if you're in a very high-touch, complex implementation, that setup may have its own playbook. And it really depends on your type of business. And so here you can see, now you have laid out your whole playbook. And so from day 0 to day 5, you want to do setup. And then for the next 10 days, you're going to do customization. And when the customization is done, you're going to review it with the customer. And once the customer signs off that the customization meets their requirements, then you're going to do the various types of training that you have to do. At Amity, we have 3 types of training that we do. We train the system admins, we train the managers, and we train the customer success managers, and they're all slightly different. And then you're monitoring them to see if they're getting the value that you hope that they would get. And then you're done. Then you can check if the goal got delivered. Okay, again, this is a very abstract onboarding playbook, but your business will have something quite similar to this. Okay, take a second and see how this kind of playbook might work in your business. Just map out a few of the stages that might make sense for you in your onboarding process. One thing to keep in mind is you might have different types of customers or different products, and you can definitely have, and you should have, different playbooks for different types of customers and different types of products. So if you're, in Amity's case, we onboard a low-touch customer in a slightly different way than we onboard a high-touch customer. And so we have a low-touch onboarding playbook and a high-touch onboarding playbook. Okay. And then let's put the playbook, now that it's designed, into operation. And this can be as simple as having a whiteboard with some columns in them where you can keep track of where each customer is in that playbook. And so here you can see that Acme and Soylent Corp are in the setup stage. I'm not sure we should have made Soylent green. And then you can see from the color, if you like, where they're late and where they're on time. And so we have Stark Industries, they're in the monitoring phase. So this type of visualization gives you a really nice overview view of where your customers are. So as much as we'd love to for you to buy Amity and use Amity to do this, you really can start manually. And it can be a good idea to start manually, because it'll let you figure out what works and what doesn't work, and how you might want to adjust it. And so this is a fine way to get started with your onboarding playbooks. And we love it when we have a customer that's doing this, because they can just take a picture and send it to us, and we know what they need. Okay. But this type of system really does break down, and sticky notes do get, the glue dries up and they fall on the ground, and you don't know where they came from. And so this is good to start, but it really does get hard to scale and hard to manage. And so Amity does sell a customer success automation platform, and these are our playbooks. And so here you can see that we have the stages: set up, customize, review, train, and monitor. And you can see that we're moving cable vision from customize to review. This is really a sexy animation. So this really helps you automate and standardize and stay on top of your playbooks. And then you can open up a playbook, and then here you can see all of the tasks that need to happen in that playbook. So here you can see there's 3 tasks, and as you complete them, you can just manage the checklist inside of the playbook. And this is really what helps with the onboarding and the consistency and the scalability. Is Amity automatically generates this checklist for you when an account moves into that stage. And so if a new CSM is starting, they know exactly what to do right away. And you can even add help material and descriptions inside of the tasks too. Okay. So great way to keep on top of all of your playbooks and all of your onboarding activity. Okay, so wrapping up, you know, I can't stress this enough. Keep it simple at the beginning. We've seen customers who design very complex, intertwined playbooks with 20 tasks and big workflows, and we know that in 2 months they're going to throw that all out and do something much simpler. And so start simple, iterate and perfect as you get experience. And also, the playbooks aren't the Bible. Playbooks are there to empower you. If they're not working, just change them. Okay, so one of the suggestions that we make is run your playbook for 2 full periods before you make any assessments. So in the example case we had, the periods are 30 days, so run it for 60 days and get some results. And at the end of 60 days, you can see how many customers met the goal, how many customers didn't meet the goal. My guess is the first time you do this, what you're going to learn is your goal was set too high or too low. But once you get some data, adjust based on that feedback. And also, don't change your playbooks. We don't recommend you change your playbooks willy-nilly as you use them. Obviously, if there's a dramatic error, you should address that. But it's really good to step back and make the changes all at once in context together. We know this, that when we don't do that, when we just make up our playbooks on the fly, we get a Frankenstein playbook, and nobody wants a Frankenstein playbook. Okay, so how do you go about choosing the metrics you're going to use for measuring your playbooks? And in the case of onboarding, we recommend really make it about how does the customer get value and how do they get value quickly. That may not be the right mantra for your business, but something close to that probably is. And so you want to keep in mind, how do we achieve and demonstrate value? And how do we get the customer getting value really quickly? I signed up for a service last week that helps us keep track of all of our online tools. And I was up and running using that tool in 5 minutes. And it really gave me great feedback. I'd love to be able to do it in 5 minutes with Amity. It's a little more complex for us and probably for you. But really keep in mind what is that time to first value, and then be specific. Customer getting value is a nice goal, but that's not a metric. So you want to be specific, like the number of users doing activity X for Y days in a row, something like that. And usage is a pretty good way of measuring initial value, because if they're willing to take the time, if they're willing to invest the time in your product, it means that you've delivered value, or they can see the path to value. So it's a great first test. Obviously, actually measuring the value they get with outcomes will be the better path down the road. But during onboarding, tracking what activities they do and how much they do it is a pretty good proxy for that. Okay, so thank you very much for coming out today. As Mathilde said, we will be following up. We'll send you the deck and the recording in the next 24 hours. And if you'd like to see how Amity's playbooks and Amity's overall suite of customer success automation tools can help you standardize and automate your customer success process, pull all your data together, automate your health scoring, get you out of Excel or Google Sheet hell, just drop us an email or go to the website at getamity.com/demo, and we'd be thrilled to give you a demo and show you how Amity can work in your business. Okay, so now we'd love to answer your questions. So I'll turn it over to Mathilde. Mathilde will read your questions out, and I will answer them as best as I can.
Awesome, thanks, Paul. Thanks everyone for sending us so many questions. I do encourage everyone to use the Q&A panel to send us more, but let's get started here. So a question from Haley is, what's the right cadence of points of engagement to keep our customers learning and growing with our tool?
That's a great question. It's a critical question, and that is one of the things that's going to vary from business model to business model. If it's a self-serve, low-touch kind of tool, you want to engage with them right away. Probably within 15 minutes of them signing up. Otherwise, they're going to forget about you, and you want to reinforce that probably on a daily basis, and as much as possible. If you're engaging with them, you want that to be contextual. So, it annoys me personally when I'm signing up for a new service and I'm and I go in and I do the initial configuration, I set up a profile, and then 3 days later I get an email saying how to set up your profile. It's like, no, I'm past that. Don't waste my time, and I generally stop reading those emails if that happens. So you want it to be as contextual as possible, and if it's if you're a high touch product with some sort of substantial implementation or customization configuration period, you really want to find a way to get a minimal configuration built so that you can get them up and running on a subset of the product so that they're getting value as soon as possible. And we like people to be using Amity within 2 weeks because there's a lot of data integration that we need to do, but we don't engage with the end CSMs during that 2 weeks because they don't have context for that, and then we like to speak with them once a week after the implementation period. Obviously, your business will be different and your mileage will vary.
Awesome, thanks. Another question here from Joel is, do you have any tips for building a low-touch self-service onboarding program with minimal budget and minimal resources?
Actually, can you read the beginning of that again?
Yeah, do you have any tips for building a low-touch self-service onboarding program?
A low-touch onboarding program, you're probably going to be doing that a lot with email campaigns. So there are affordable, low-cost email tools out there. I don't have any direct recommendation, but if you go to Hacker News or Product Hunts, they usually cover some pretty interesting tools that are suited for startups, or they'll have a suite of products. That'd be one place to look. One thing I would recommend in the early stages while you're setting up the onboarding is to work with a few customers in a high touch fashion, because you just get higher fidelity feedback when you're talking with somebody and you have a relationship with them than if everything's through automated email. Now, if you've got 500 customers signing up every day, that's not feasible, but you do want to have a few that you take through the process high touch, so that you can hear from them what's not working, why it's not working, what you need to tweak, what they would have preferred, and it's hard to get that feedback through email campaigns.
Awesome, thanks. A live question here from Josh is, at what point are you drawing a line to say you're okay to graduate from onboarding to your customer?
Yeah, that's a great question. By the nature of putting plans in place, they tend to orient around dates. But day 30 isn't anything magic. So it's really when the customer has advanced enough in their journey that they can start standing up on their own, and the types of metrics we were discussing earlier, like the number of users doing a particular activity that's early in their journey, really gives you some insight into when they're ready to move on. Because if they haven't really passed the first pylon on their own, they're not going to get to the second pylon. So you want to really keep an eye on them until they get to the first pylon in their journey, and then once they get to the first pylon, let them start standing up on their own.
Awesome. We have another question here from Alex at Mobisoft. Is an onboarding playbook adaptable to the size of your organization?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, so you should have different onboarding playbooks for different types of customers. So if you serve different industries, you may have a banking onboarding playbook and a retail onboarding playbook and a media onboarding playbook. You may have SMB versions of those playbooks and enterprise versions of those playbooks. So absolutely, your playbooks should adjust, to your organization as your organization grows, and how typically you'd want them to adjust, how you organize yourself to deal with the differences in your customer base.
Awesome. Another question here is, where does project management fit in the onboarding playbook?
Yeah, so that's a great question. If you have a really complex implementation process, you may actually have an implementation project, and you may use an implementation project management tool to manage that. Something like Asana, something along those lines. If you have a complex process. So playbooks are, you can think of them as simplified project management tools for standardizing the process. But playbooks generally don't replace complex Gantt chart type tools or complex tools like Asana, if that's the nature of your implementation. But just because it's, you need that in implementation, doesn't mean you need something that complex for training and feedback and monitoring. So you may do your implementation with a project management tool and then use a more simple playbook for the rest.
Awesome. Another question here. We'll take a couple more questions. I don't think we'll be able to get through all of them, but we'll select a couple more questions. So one here is, do you have any tips for when a new client is getting onboarded and is hindering the process, as in they're taking too long to answer emails, to train, to perform key actions?
Yeah, that's a good question. What do you do when a customer ghosts you? Don't give up, and find ways of adding value in your emails. Nagging generally doesn't work, and so if you're trying to get someone's attention, good subject lines that are relevant to them are going to do better than why weren't you at our last meeting? That probably isn't going to work as well.
Awesome. Let's take one more question here before we wrap up. Great question from Katie is, do you have any tips for not overwhelming the customer at the start of onboarding?
Yeah, my first tip would be to not overwhelm the customer at the start of onboarding. The biggest tip is to really focus on that point of first value. Keep everything focused on that point of first value, and you may have to work with the customer to persuade them that that's a good thing to do, because they probably had 5 things in mind when they bought the product, and they want, they're human beings. They want all 5 things, and they want it yesterday. And so you may have to explain to them that there's a journey, and that you're gonna go to pylon 1, and then pylon 2, and then pylon 3 in that journey, and then explain from your own experience the risks of not doing it that way. But make it clear we're going to milepost 1 and then milepost 2, and let them know what milepost 1 is and what it means for them and how they'll use it, and really keep that front and center. But yeah, if you try to deliver on all 5 of their goals at once, you probably are going to confuse and overwhelm them and probably yourself. Right. Hey, these were awesome questions. I could have talked for a full half hour on every question. So they, by necessity, had to be quick answers. If you have any questions that come to your mind after the webinar, please drop me a line, paul@getamity.com. Love to answer your questions. And I just want to thank you again for coming out. And I'm going to turn it over to Mathilde to wrap up.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Paul. And thanks so much to everyone sending us questions. We really appreciate it. Sorry to everyone that we didn't get to answer the question for, but we are keeping track. If you want to get in touch with us afterwards, get in touch with Paul at @getamity. Drop us a line on the website, reply to one of my emails, and we'd love to chat with you guys about onboarding, about playbooks, about Amity, anything customer success, really. But on this note, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Happy Valentine's Day and happy Wednesday, and have an awesome end of your day.
Great. Thanks, Mathilde.